Welcome to the webinar on how to use your voice effectively when presenting. So this webinar aims to give you some tips and some simple skills that you can use immediately. When you use this webinar, you can use immediately to be more aware and more effective in the use of your voice when you're presenting. And this can be formal presentations, this can be in job interviews, this can be during facilitation. Even across meetings, how you use your voice can be really powerful. So my aim with this webinar is to give you 2 or 3 skills that you can use straight away. So not just theoretical, but some what I call plug and play. Wow, I can use that. I can implement that tomorrow. A little bit about myself. So Peter Dew's my name, and my passion is public speaking, training and coaching. And I love to help you gain the confidence to use your voice, so to speak up, to put your point of view across, to not be held back with your message. There's nothing worse than having something you want to say and not be able to say it because of lack of confidence or some fear around public speaking. So that's my passion, helping you be able to speak up at meetings, do those presentations, sell yourself from the platform. Really powerful skill. My background, I noticed there's some new names on the webinar. My background is that I'm a person who stutters and for much of my life avoided public speaking, but the last few years I've decided to turn that, I guess, that disability or that hurdle and my fear of public speaking into my full-time job. And I now do public speaking for my career, and I use my journey of overcoming my stutter. And when I say overcome, I still stutter, but not as bad as I used to, and use my journey to show everyone else that, wow, you can speak up, you can do it. That's enough about me. So for the new people, for the webinar, please take notes as you go, ask questions at any stage, do participate and think about the content. One of the best ways, one of the most powerful ways to use a webinar is to apply what I say to a recent speaking situation. And could have you done anything differently in terms of using your voice? Or have you got a presentation coming up? Have you got a seminar coming up? A meeting where you're going to speak up? Are there things that you can use immediately from this webinar? So it's about applying the tips that I give you, the information, and thinking about where you can use this or where you could have used it. And that makes the information more practical. How to ask questions? 2 ways. You've got a little icon where you can raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I will open up your microphone and you can ask the question so everyone can hear the question. The other way is you've got a question and answer box. At any stage, please type in the questions at any stage. Don't wait for me to ask for questions, just type them in. You'll see, and every now and then I will pause and I will show this slide, and that'll be me pausing for a moment and giving you a chance to ask questions. Don't wait for me to pause and show you that slide. At any stage, just type in that question and I will get to it. So what are we going to cover? A fair bit of information, the role of your speed and the pace, and if you do speak too fast, how to slow that down. The importance of sometimes going soft in your voice, how to use your voice to bring the audience back. So you're facilitating and they're talking loud and you want to bring them back. How to create a voice that's credible. Sometimes when you're speaking, credibility is very important, but other times you want to have a 2-way discussion, you want people to share, and you need to be approachable. When should you be credible? When should you be approachable? Using the pause and how to be comfortable with the pause and what to do with your filler words. And by filler words I mean ums and ahs, etc., you know, and other words that people use extraneously to buy themselves some time to gather thoughts, what to do with those filler words and how to avoid them. And of course, to answer your questions. That's the agenda for today, for the hour. Let's start off with a self-audit. Your voice. Are you aware of these aspects of your voice? If you're not aware, you need to get feedback. And the feedback is not from yourself. What speed do you speak at? Does your audience perceive you as a rapid speaker? Do you speak too fast? Some people say, I speak too fast, and then everyone else in the room says, well, no, in actual fact, you speak at a nice, steady pace. Can you speak too slow? There are a few speakers whose ongoing, slow, continual pace is a little bit dreary and a little bit boring. And there are things that they can do with that. Do you use any filler words? Many people I work with are unaware of the level of ums and ahs that they say. Now, the occasional and ah is not a problem. It is when you continually punctuate your presentation, your spoken word, with continual ums and ahs. Are you aware of how many filler words you use? Can you be heard clearly at the back of the room? Have you got a strong voice, or are you a quietly spoken person? And of course, that depends by the size of the room. Some people go to medium-sized meeting rooms and say they don't need a microphone, and then when they speak, people down the back are unable to hear them. You just need to be aware of how well your voice carries. This is an audit. This is a self-audit, but you can't judge it. You need someone else to tell you what they think about your voice. Is your voice interesting? And what do I mean by, do you have an interesting voice? Do you have the natural intonation, the rise and fall, the variation in your voice? Or is your voice more monotone? My voice is quite monotone. So I need to do a few tricks and a few tools to make my voice sound reasonably interesting. It's not the most brilliant voice in the world. I do not have a radio quality voice. And I'm aware of that because people have told me one of the things you can do in terms of your self-audit, record yourself and play that back. The recording is how you really sound. And then you can count the ums and ahs. You can work out if you're using pause. You can work out what speed you're speaking at. So do a self-audit and be aware of those things, and then you know which area you can use some of the tools I'm going to teach you. Why the voice? Why this webinar? Around about a third of what you say is portrayed in the level of your voice. This is your passion, your sincerity, the words, the interest, how fast you speak. About a third. I also have done a webinar on your nonverbal communication, your gestures, your body language, how to use the platform. That's about half of your presentation. This webinar is about using your voice. Over the telephone, we judge people, we make decisions about people just based on their voice. And we can pick a certain amount of character just from someone's voice. So your voice is really important. It's a great part of your ability to deliver, to connect, and to build credibility with your audience. So it is worthwhile investing and understanding what your voice is doing. A few more people that have just joined, so welcome. So let's talk about the pace and the speed at which you talk. I guess the biggest problem is speaking too fast all the time or speaking too slow all the time. My voice is fairly monotone and I have a fairly boring voice. So one of the tools that I do is sometimes I speak fast and other times I slow down the pace at which I speak. And this helps me create the essence of vocal variety. I don't have natural intonation. Not everyone does have natural intonation. So changing the pace and the speed at which you talk can help you create vocal variety. I'm going to talk about the pause a little bit later on, and the pause can help you slow down. And when you're really passionate and you're really energized, it's often natural to speed up, and it does help create the suspension. So be aware of your pace, but don't be mono-paced. Do vary the speed at which you speak. Change your volume. Sometimes you need to go soft. Sometimes you need to raise your voice. Once again, the softness or the softening of my voice and the increasing of my volume when I'm presenting at workshops helps people get a sense that my voice is mildly interesting. But it's a tool that I use. Now, one of the things you can do once you know or once you categorize your own voice, are you a booming, a loud speaker, or you are quite a soft-spoken speaker? Are you soft at interviews? Are you soft when you present? The trick is go loud. If you're a soft-spoken person, go louder on your key points. If you are a loud, booming speaker, just go softer on your key points. The rule is, for those key points, the things you want people to remember, go opposite to what you are comfortable. Go opposite to your normal voice. So if you are a softly spoken person and you raise your volume, and that's not what you normally do, that helps those key points stick. And if you are a loud, booming person, I just want you to take note that the softening of the voice on the key points, those that you want people to remember, will have greater impact. Just one of those physiological things that happens. The voice, the volume that you're least comfortable with, for some reason has greater impact. Wonderful way of using volume, as well as creating that suspense. The softening and the louding, the softening and the increasing of the volume as you go will also help you create vocal variety. Other reasons to go soft. So if you are a loud speaker, besides highlighting points, you can go soft to create tension. You can go soft to create tension. You can go soft to bring the audience back. One of the mistakes people do, and this is more about facilitation, or when you've got people, workshopping and they're talking in their groups, or pair up and have a chat to the person next to you, and now you want everybody back. One of the things that people do is now can I have you all back, please? Can everyone come back to the front? And then you hear ding, ding, ding on glasses and, all sorts of things to bring people back. As you raise your voice, the volume in the room increases as well. So you raise your voice and you shout louder, and they talk louder still. So one of the ways you can bring audiences back is to, now, if I can have you all back, I now want to talk about the next step forward in this process. When you soften the voice, people will realize that you're talking and they can't hear you, and they will quieten down and stop speaking. I was in Karratha last week, and I was running a short seminar on thinking and speaking off the cuff, and I had 30 people in the room. And they were doing a lot of workshopping and talking to the person next. And I just said, now, if everyone can come back to the front, what I want to talk about now is, what do you do when you get a difficult question? It was amazing. It just rippled through the crowd, and they all stopped and looked at me. Hang on, he's talking, but I can't hear him. So this is one of the tools that will help you bring the audience back. And don't be afraid to do a visual as well. So put your hand up in the air and start to beckon people back as you start to whisper. So the visual cue with the softening of the voice is a great way to bring people back. So going soft is a powerful tool. Any questions? I'm going to pause for a moment. Storm, fire away.
I've got a question for you. Is there a reason why going soft for a loudspeaker is like helps you speak better? Is that because of the impact of because they're like surprised by the fact that you can change your voice and you're not just a booming speaker? Is that the reason why they sit up and pay attention to that, or is it just another tool to use to be more flexible?
Yeah, thanks, Storm. So Storm asks, is there a reason? So what's the science behind a loudspeaker going soft and having greater impact and a soft speaker going loud and having more impact? I do not know the scientific reason behind it. I do not know the physiology or the psychology as to why. And it may be that because you are uncomfortable moving to your non-normal voice, that you pay more attention to what you're saying. So if you save it for those key points, I guess the key takeaway, because it's not your normal mode of voice and you have to think to drop your voice or think to raise your voice, it just makes you pay more attention and more detail, and they may see, the audience may see a change in your physiology that makes them think, oh, I need to take notice here. So great question, Storm. I can't answer it with any scientific psychological evidence, but I'm just postulating as that may be the reasons. But it's one of the things that neuro-linguistic programming have observed, and they look at patterns. They look at patterns and what helps people remember things, and going at the opposite voice just seems to have greater impact. What if you're just an average volume, you don't speak loud and you don't speak soft? Then I'm not sure. Then I imagine going loud or going softer would still feel a little bit uncomfortable from your normal voice, so it may have the same impact. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, let me talk to you about the power of the pause. I love this quote from Sir Ralph Wilson, who is a United Kingdom actor. The most precious things in a speech are pauses. A pause will fill the void, it will capture attention, it will punctuate, illuminate, and build the tension within a speech. So, as a speaker, don't be afraid to use pause. Really powerful tool. The pause that I use also helps create that illusion of vocal variety. So the tools I now use are, I sometimes change my pace, slowing down, speeding up. The volume, I go loud sometimes and softer sometimes. And of course I use pause. 3 tools that I, as a fairly monotone speaker, can use to create vocal variety. So I don't have the natural radio voice. I'm not the James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, but I can still do things, as can you, to increase the vocal variety, the intonation, the music within your voice. When to use pause? If you speak too fast. So let's say that self-audit, or you know that you speak too fast. Speech pathologists will tell you you've been speaking at this rate for such a long time, you cannot slow down. However, what you can do is you can use pause. So you can punctuate your relatively fast speaking voice with more pauses. Barack Obama is a very good example. He speaks really, really, really quickly, in fact, but he uses pause so effectively for two reasons. Number one, to create suspense, but more importantly, to give people time to absorb what he is saying. Just with the pause as a speaker, remember you can use the pause, or you can pause for twice as long as you feel comfortable with. You can pause for about 4 to 5 seconds. For you, when you pause that long, it seems like a monumental abyss of silence, and you feel compelled you must speak into it. From the audience's perspective, the pause is just half the time that you feel it is. So you can pause for twice as long as you feel comfortable with, because the audience only sees half of that. And the pause will create suspense, it will illuminate, it will punctuate. Think of what you're saying as raindrops. In fact, we'll call them brain drops of information. You're speaking to the audience, and you want them to soak up the information. When you speak too fast, when it rains too heavily, the information or the rain just runs off. I was in Karratha last Friday and the skies opened up in the morning and the water was just running everywhere. I could not walk anywhere without my feet being soaked. By the afternoon it had cleared up, but at that particular time the rain was so heavy. So don't give so much information out so quickly, so rapidly, that people don't have time to soak up what you're saying. So the pause helps you slow down if you speak too fast without you having to slow the rate of your speaking. So use more pauses to punctuate what you're saying, and every now and then increase the duration of a pause. When your mind goes blank, as I'm getting older, as I do more and more speaking, and those of you who've been to my workshops, you know that I present my workshops without using notes. I don't read information. I did a keynote in Karratha last week. I did not read my notes. So when your mind does go blank, just pause. And 99% of the time when you pause, something will come into your mind. It may not be your exact point that you wanted to say, but you can move on. And what I find is the point I was going to say will surface a little bit later on, and then I can weave it in seamlessly back into my content. Is everyone aware that no one knows what you're going to say next? You have no idea what the next words are going to be out of my mouth. So in this webinar, should my mind go blank and I say nothing and then move on, you've got no idea that I just had a brain drain. What I see very often is people say, oh look, I've just forgotten what I was going to say. Oh yes. If they'd replace that with a pause, no one would have known that they'd had that momentary mind blank. So it's about having the confidence to trust yourself and use the pause. Breathing. If you get a little nervous, do some deep breathing. One of the things I teach in my workshops is one of the resting positions, put your hand on your belly button. So that hand is now parallel to the floor. In fact, you can put both hands if you want to. That is a valid resting position. If the hand on your belly button is not moving in and out, then you're not breathing, or rather you're breathing in the top parts of your lungs, which is shallow breathing. When you do deep diaphragmatic breathing, when you breathe in, your hand on your belly button will pop out. When you breathe out, your hand will move inwards. It's like a balloon. Your lungs are like a balloon. When you inflate the balloon, the hand moves out. So if you are feeling a little bit nervous and you just need to gather your thoughts, then Just breathe. Breathe deep. It also helps relax you. It helps you recover. And no one knows you're doing it. You can just pause. The other use of pause is to replace filler words. If I can demonstrate something, and by filler words I mean you know, and actually when you think about some words they actually don't mean much, and if you actually left those words out, you'd actually be equally effective without actually saying those words actually. Actually, obviously, used too often are indeed filler words. Can someone type in a really simple question that they know I can answer in, say, 30 to 60 seconds? Don't stump me, just a really simple question, maybe about myself, not necessarily about the webinar, just a really simple question. Maybe the weather in Perth. Someone just type in a question. So how was my week? Well, yeah, I've had a really good week, and I didn't get as much done as I wanted, but I'm actually quite happy. Versus, yeah, I've had a fairly good week. I didn't get done as much as I wanted, but really I'm quite happy. Same answer to the same question, one with ums, one with pause. Which one sounded more intelligent? Where were you born and where did I grow up? Well, I grew up in Denmark, down south in Western Australia. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Well, I grew up down south of West Australia in a town called Denmark. So the pause, and thanks for those two questions, the pause is what you use to replace your filler words, the the All you're doing is buying yourself a little bit of time to gather your thoughts, or maybe you're transitioning or segueing from one thought to the next thought. The pause is so much more effective. That's the power of the pause. Brilliant tool. Silence. So the pause is silence. Did you know that silence will help you form the group? Let's say you at the start of a presentation, you've got a diverse group of people. Maybe they're dysfunctional, maybe they're angry. You as the presenter or you as the facilitator, if you model, if you demonstrate silence, that you're comfortable with silence, you can help that group form. You can help that group become comfortable. You can help that group become functional quicker and more effectively. So just think of your first date, the first time you've gone out with someone ever. And silence is really awkward, so you've got to keep talking, you know. Don't be silent. You don't know the person, so you awkwardly keep speaking. And then when you stop speaking, they quickly fill that void and awkwardly keep speaking. It's an awkward conversation. Then you fall in love. And you just stare in each other's eyes and remain silent. You don't need to say any words. You're now functional. You're now formed. You're now connected. So if you model as a presenter, so if you demonstrate it's okay to be silent, that you're cool with silence, then the group understands that it's okay to be silent. So the group work, the discussion, the brainstorming can become functional faster, because there's not that awkward first date, we've got to speak into the void mentality, because you've demonstrated it's okay to be silent. Silence is a tool. Once again, the pause is how you create silence. Silence is the tool that you can use to help fast track the formation of a group. Michael Grinder is the person that has studied the art and science of nonverbal communication. In fact, I'm going to attend Michael Grinder in Portland, in Oregon, in the United States, from the 23rd to the 26th of June. That's how important I think your voice and nonverbal communication is. I'm going to go and study under Michael Grinder. The broken sentence. So these are just some tools that you can use to use your voice. Broken sentence will help bring an audience back. I mentioned go soft, but the other thing you can do is throw out a broken sentence. It's also called a boomerang. Let's say you've got a room full of rowdy people. They are brainstorming, they're networking, they're talking, and you want to bring them back to the front. Rather than shout loud, yes, once again, you can use a visual, put your hand up and start to beckon them back, but a broken sentence would sound something like this. Now, if you're almost ready to come back, can I have everyone back to the front? The thing with the broken sentence is each time you throw a little bit out, it mustn't make sense. Some of the people will hear you and they'll say, hang on, that didn't make sense. And they'll stop talking, and then you throw out another bit of the sentence. Now, if you're almost ready to come back to the front, can I have everyone's attention? If you say, now if you're almost ready, can you come to the front? They will hear you, they'll ignore you, and they will carry on with the conversation. Each time you throw out a little bit of the sentence, you bring a few more people back, and within about 3 iterations, you've got everyone in the room back. So don't be afraid to use the broken sentence. I learned that tool from a West Australian speaker, well-known speaker, keynote speaker called Glenn Capelli. The broken sentence or the boomerang. You throw it out 3, maybe 4 times and you'll bring people back. These are tools other than just shouting and ringing a bell. The way you as a presenter can bring the group back to the front. As I said, an audio visual, a visual tool like a beacon will also bring things back. Another thing I've seen done is people do little claps, and I'm not sure if you can hear me clapping, and you just walk around the front of the room. If you can hear me, clap. If you can hear me, clap. If you can hear me, clap. A few people start clapping, then a few more start clapping, then in the end, within about 5 seconds, you've got everyone clapping in unison with you. Now you can move on. Questions? Any questions at this stage? Feel free to still type the questions in. Moving on. A credible voice versus an approachable voice. There are some times in your presentation that when you need to be credible. There are other times in your presentation when you need to be approachable. Some public speaking, if you are facilitating, if you are brainstorming, you want to be approachable. In other presentations, when you are delivering information and you want to be persuasive and you want to get people to do something different, then you need to be very credible. I want you to think about the captain. Just think of a flight that you've been on and the captain comes across the PA system. This is your, let me start again. This is your captain speaking. We have a flight time of 4 hours. We will be cruising at 36,000 feet and the weather is fine at the moment. I will get back to you when we get closer to our destination. And that can be a male captain, that can be a female captain. Excuse me. Then the cabin crew come on. And they say something like this. This is your cabin crew speaking. Our aim is to make this flight as safe and comfortable for you as possible. If we can do anything at all to help you in this journey, please don't hesitate to contact one of the staff. just ring your bell, just contact us as we walk past the aisle, and we'll try and assist you in any way we can. Thank you. So what is the difference? What is the difference? When you're credible, your head is held still. So the captain is credible. The captain is sending you information. The captain of the plane is not negotiating whether you want to fly at 36,000 feet or 26,000 feet. He's not negotiating whether you've got any questions for him. He is telling you, this is the way it is. I don't want to be disturbed. Then there's the flight attendants, and they're seeking information, and their head bobs up and down, and the voice fluctuates and rise and fall. So if there's anything we can do to help you, please don't hesitate to contact us. We will be flying at 36,000 feet. We have a flight time of 4.5 hours. I'll get back to you closer to our destination with the weather conditions on the ground. Please have a pleasant flight. There are some non-verbals there other than voice, so the head bobbing up and down. Palms facing up when you're seeking information, when you're being approachable. The palms will be facing down as a presenter when you are telling people the 4 steps that they need to do. Your intonation, it deepens at the end of each sentence. Australians have this wonderful way of speaking where we put an inflection at the end of each sentence and we rise up. Australians are very approachable people. Sometimes we're not that credible. So you need to understand that sometimes you're seen as being credible and sometimes you're seen as being approachable. If you are delivering really important information that you want people to go away and do and implement, and you're using an approachable voice, it could be that you don't have the impact that you want. Our previous Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, spoke really well. She was an eloquent speaker, very few filler words, very intelligent speaker, did not enjoy the connection and maybe the credibility with the Australian people that she at times deserved. One of the things that Julia did all of the time was she bobbed her head up and down, and she had that really fluctuating voice. So a very approachable person, but sometimes the credibility did not come through. I've got a question around icebreakers, and the question's that it's really hard to do an icebreaker sentence when you first meet your group. Do I have any good icebreaker sentences so that the speaker will then feel more relaxed? I don't use icebreakers in my presentation skills, Storm. I use icebreakers in networking. So you're at a function, and so what do you do? Tell me a little bit about yourself. My first 30 seconds when I speak, and you may want to call this an icebreaker, but the first 30 seconds has to let the room know that they're in the right place straight away. So I want to have impact and create relevance straight away. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're sitting in my workshop, how to overcome your fear of public speaking and start speaking confidently. So this is I guess, my introductory workshop. Most people in that workshop hate public speaking, don't do public speaking, racked by nerves. So I would start like this, Storm. Mankind's #1 fear in the world is fear of public speaking, and dying is #2. So if any of you guys have any fear of public speaking if any of you guys have any fear of public speaking, then what I say to you is welcome to the majority of the world's population. Welcome to the club. My workshop's around the fear of public speaking, so I'll grab attention, create relevance straight away. And then after that, I might say, Mark Twain said there's 2 kinds of speakers in the world, those that are nervous and those that are bloody liars. And I'm sure none of you out there are liars, so welcome to this workshop that's going to deal with your fear, your nerves of public speaking. When I do my winning presentation skills workshop and I'm talking about the importance of public speaking, I start with a quote from Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill said, if you can stand on your feet and speak to a group of people, then you have a really powerful skill. And you have to agree that those people have got the ability to engage, persuade, educate, move people to a different way of thinking. If they can do that, then it's a really powerful skill. And that's what today's workshop is about. So I start with something that creates relevance. I don't start by, good morning, my name's Peter Dew and it's a real pleasure to be here. I don't start with humour. I'm not very funny. I create relevance. The first 30 seconds needs to have impact. So I don't do icebreakers in my presentations, but I do have a scripted 30-second opening. So how can you grab attention? How can you create relevance? So in your presentation, so thanks for that question, Storm. And you can buy a book on icebreakers. I have got one on my shelf, and it's how to break the ice. It's just a small book. I can't recall who the author is. If you want me to let you know who that is, please send me an email later on. So sometimes you need to be the captain when you're speaking, and you need to have that credible, steady voice with the intonation, the downturn at the end. And other times you need to be the cabin crew. You need to be approachable. Can anyone add anything else to what I've said? I'd really value your opinion on this particular thing we're talking about. Sometimes you need to be the captain. Sometimes you need to be the cabin crew. So when do you want to be credible? When do you want to be approachable? If you look at a speech structure a little bit like this, at the beginning, you're developing rapport, you're connecting, you may be doing an icebreaker. You need to be approachable. You need to build that rapport. You need to connect. This is not the time to come on and sell your 4 steps, to sell your product, to sell your 3-stage process. Who are you to sell to me at the moment? Who are you to come on and tell me this is what I need to do? How to suck eggs. So what I want to do is I want to give you some tools that will help you use your voice so the next time you're before an audience you can be more comfortable. You can use a couple of tools. You can be aware of what your current voice is doing. Once you've developed rapport, you can now move into the training, the telling. This is the steps. These are the 4 steps. This is my 3-step process. These are the 7 keys. Now you need to be credible. Once you've done that, you then move into that coaching. Does everyone understand what I'm talking about? Do you all have a tool, 1 or 2 tools you can use tomorrow? You still want to be credible. Then you go to approachable. This is the wrapping up. I'm hoping that you've all got something out of the workshop. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add? Remember, your voice carries about 1/3 of your ability to communicate, 1/3 of your message. So starting here, that would be the way I would develop a presentation. And then sometimes at any stage you can get Q&A. When you deal with the Q&A at the start, you need to be approachable. Then when you deliver the answer, the content, you need to be credible. Is everyone cool with that? I now need to be approachable. So that's a way of using, I guess, just a model of when do I need to be credible. Even at job interviews, yeah, at front, at the beginning, you need to be approachable. Then they give you that question. How would you deal with 2 people in conflict? Or can you give me an example of when you've used your interpersonal skills to resolve conflict in the workplace? You now need to be credible. Are there any questions before I mention how to look after your voice? So as a speaker, as a presenter, as an educator, as a facilitator, your voice is your number 1 instrument, your number 1 tool. So you need to look after your voice. Drink lots of fluids before speaking. One of the things I do when I pause for questions and I have those question slides there, not only to remind you to ask me questions, but I also take a drink. So during that pause, I drink the glass of water that I have with me. Drink lots of fluids 1 to 2 hours before speaking, and also have some fluids up on stage with you. If you have a quiver or a shaky voice, don't drink coffee. I would avoid the cappuccinos, I'd avoid the flat whites, even the soy lattes, because the protein in the milk or the soy will build up on your vocal apparatus and may exacerbate any quivers, any stress, any nervousness in your voice. Good fluids to drink, besides the water, is pineapple juice or also apple juice. In fact, the number one, and I think this looks like orange juice, I wouldn't drink orange juice. Orange juice is not really one of the lubricant juices. Grape juice is also another lubricant. So opera singers, the number one lubricant they drink is a raw egg. I can't bring myself to drinking a raw egg, so I stick with pineapple juice or apple juice. And that just helps lubricate. I'm not saying you need to have that apple juice on stage with you, but you can. Warm your voice up. Just some humming, do some tongue twisters. Opera singers warm up their voice. You're going to do a 1-hour keynote. Just to stand on stage and expect your voice to immediately become rich, have that rise and fall. Practice being credible. Practice being approachable. Warm your voice up. Dry mouth, you're a little bit nervous. Put a tic-tac. Wedge your tic-tac between your lip and your gum in one of the grooves where between two teeth. It's the right size, it just fits up nicely. Generally not in the front, I push one around the side. What the tic-tac does is it makes you salivate profusely. Dry mouth has just gone. The tic-tac will stay in your gum for about 2 hours. And after the first 5 minutes, so I would put a tic-tac in place before I start speaking, and then when I'm on, it's just there and I don't even know about it. If it drops down into your mouth, then you just chew it or swallow it. It doesn't matter, but the tic-tac will help you avoid dry mouth if you do have that nervous dry mouth before you present. The tic-tac will help you to salivate. So you need to look after your voice. How to improve your voice? If you don't have a strong voice, or if you're in a larger room. So the room in Karratha last week when I did my keynote, there was about 130, 140 people, and it was the biggest room in Karratha, and I was mic'd up. I arrived really early. It was a lapel microphone. We did all the sound testing. When I say really early, I arrived 2 hours before the presentation started, but I was being paid to speak, and I would always recommend that people get there at least an hour before the presentation. In fact, we had some problems with the video I was going to show and the audio wasn't working, and it took the audio visual guy about 45 minutes to sort out the problem. And everything worked fine, but if I had rocked up half an hour before my presentation, we would have been in trouble. So use a microphone. Do you know how to use a microphone? If it is a handheld microphone, it is not an ice cream. And then what I see is people that have a handheld microphone, as their speech goes on, the hand slowly drops down and their voice trails off. And then they remember they've got to hold it back up. You try to gesture and they move the microphone with their gestures. So I always recommend a lapel microphone or what I call a Madonna microphone, one of those ones, which has a headset. Do you need a microphone? Will your voice carry to the back beforehand? But you need to find out. So at times I've thought my voice would carry, but it won't work. It won't reach the back. Or someone down the back says, yes, I can hear you, but that the room's absolutely silent. when you put a crowd of 130 people in and they start talking and chatting and start rustling, then your voice won't be heard. So that's about your preparation. Worthwhile investing in knowing how to use a microphone. I've got a couple of questions. I sometimes have a tickle in my throat. Then that, if your throat's fine and you don't have a cold or a virus and you tickle, then that's obviously nervous tension, and I would go with one of the lubricants. I would go with apple juice, and that should eliminate the tickle. And as soon as you start to get that tickle again, once again, use the pause and have a drink of water. I get a tickle in my throat often from overuse of my voice, as well as doing a keynote. I also then had to run a workshop that evening and then a full day workshop the next day. So about 2 o'clock the following day, I was sipping water quite frequently during my presentation. And it's quite okay, especially when you're running a workshop, the audience does not mind if you take a sip of water. And if you are doing a long presentation, straining your voice, don't be afraid to use the time that you tell audience to do something. So I want you to have a chat with the person next to you. What can you learn, or what can you do differently from what I've taught you so far? I'll give you 2 minutes. Go and have your sip of water. Okay. And if it's one of those ongoing itches, I also have Cepacol or a buttermenthol if it's a viral type one, and I also bring Lem Sip Suck, which is a sort of hot tea drink which has paracetamol and some other things that soothe the throat. And I carry a couple of sachets of Lem Sip Suck in my pencil case, in my, with my spare batteries and all the things I need as a speaker and as a presenter. And if a virus hits, I still need to present, then I will use some pharmaceuticals. Practice projecting your voice. So let's say you are a soft speaker and you want to increase your voice. Please don't shout. Don't shout. So you're a soft speaker and you want to raise your voice on those key points. Practice projecting your voice. Have a friend hold up a wine glass on its side at the back of the room and get them to move to different points. Visualize hitting that glass with your voice and do that diaphragmatic breathing or deep breathing, your hand on your belly button, fill your diaphragm, and then speak and visualize projecting your voice. When you hit the glass, your voice will ring back and you'll know that your voice is carrying to the back of the room. If you can't reach the glass, get the person to take a couple of steps forward until you can hit the glass. Do that for a while and then practice, and then get them to take a couple of steps back. And over a period of time, you will be able to increase the projection of your voice. Opera singers that fill an auditorium with their voice, they do not shout. They've just trained to project their voice. And it's a lot to do with the breathing and opening up your mouth and almost pushing the voice out, not shouting. That's an exercise you can do yourself with a friend. Of course, you can do acting or elocution classes, or go to a voice coach or a speech pathologist. They can teach you how to improve the quality of your voice, the volume of your voice. They can improve your intonation, the music in your voice. There are some nursery rhymes, some sayings, some tongue twisters that increase the musicality of your voice. Feel free to use a speech pathologist or a voice coach if you really want to improve your voice. Any last questions as we move towards the end? So as I said, make use of me. I do a range of workshops. I can do in-house workshops, and I run these webinars, about 2 webinars a month. I do one-on-one coaching, and I've also got a newsletter. So the way to find out about my workshops and my free webinars, because I don't always email out that I'm doing the free webinars, you need to keep in you need to keep in contact with me, and I put them on my newsletter. So you go to my website and you can sign up for the free newsletter. I schedule my webinars in advance. The newsletter goes out. So June's newsletter is due to go out at the end of May, and that'll have the webinar that I'm planning to schedule for June. So, although I will be in America for much of June. So please keep in touch. If I can be of any further use, please make use of me. So remember, your voice is your instrument as a speaker, as a presenter, in everyday life, at meetings, the credibility of your voice, the confidence in your voice. You can control these things. Even in job interviews, you need to have a good quality voice. Do a self-audit, get people to feed back to you what's happening with your voice in those areas that I described. Try and work on your voice if there's areas that you can improve on. And what 1 or 2 things will you do differently tomorrow when you speak or next week when you speak? It's about taking 1 or 2 things from this webinar and using it. I'm available for further questions via email. If I can be of any further assistance, please contact me, and I'm going to end the webinar there. Thank you for your attendance and thank you for your participation.